निवेदन. कृपया राष्ट्रहिताच्या सन्मानार्थ प्रेक्षकांनी उभे राहावे. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. We wanted to start this program on a lighter note, and we were saying, in the courts of the law, they may be debating whether to stand up for the national anthem or not, but in the court of Dr. Swamy, nationalism has no debates. You better stand up. On that note, a very warm welcome to all of you on behalf of Prabodhan Manch Parle, and to our speaker of the day, Dr. Swamy. A very warm and hearty welcome, sir. In continuing with our traditions, we will welcome our guest with a shawl, Shrifar, and a book. Shri Panshikar of Prabodhan Manch Parle do the honors. Overwhelming response that we received from most of you for this program sort of assures us that maybe this time around Prabodhan Manch doesn't need too much of an introduction. So let me get down to some more basics. The only way we think we can make this program more inclusive and really reach out to many of you is by making sure that you get our messages and we are able to reach out to you. The electronic medium offers us that opportunity. Unfortunately, we do get some mails which are bouncing. We have mobile phones which are on Do Not Disturb. And therefore, I have one request for all of you. If you haven't updated your emails with us, or if your mobiles are on D&D, please update that. If you haven't done that already, do it on your way back. And if you still haven't done that, then send us an email on prabodhanmanch57@gmail.com. I repeat, prabodhanmanch57@gmail.com. To even say that our speaker of the day, Dr. Swamy, doesn't need any introduction is a gross understatement. Born on the Ides of September 1939 in Mylapore, graduated from the Hindu College, Delhi, did his master's from the Indian Statistical Institute of Kolkata, and finally a PhD from the Harvard University in Economics. And that's where he met his better half, Rakshana, as well. Dr. Swamy's public life journey started when he joined the Sarvodaya movement of Jayaprakash ji, and he first entered parliament as a member of parliament of Rajya Sabha in 1974. 3 times Lok Sabha MP, a 3rd time Rajya Sabha MP today, union minister, so many more accolades, most well known for so many of his judicial crusades. I think his journey is very well documented and extremely well read. But what gives us that very special connect with Vile Parle is that we've known that Dr. Swamy, when he was at the height of being the lead activist against emergency, spent his days, as they say in Adnyatwas, in Vile Parle. Recalling those days, when he camouflaged, I believe, as a PhD student, One of his, and who he himself said was like his local guide, his eyes and ears of Ville Parle, says that, and I'm just quoting verbatim from what we heard from him, he said, "A friend of mine came home and saw copies of magazines like Time, etc., and was shocked. He thought I had started learning economics and such other serious subjects, and I really didn't know how to answer him. But what really Dr. Swamy did in those days was that he assimilated himself so well with everybody, with his very simple living, that nobody even thought or came to know what he was, and that's why he probably never got arrested whenever he was here. Even though he was in his mid-40s, he would have his tea without sugar, and it wasn't a fashion those days, and I think, sir, that's the reason for your great health even today." Another one of his local hosts told us that he was handsome, intelligent, and dynamic, and we just added, he's that even today. But even in those days, he had very strong opinions and a huge disdain for authority, especially for those in establishment, irrespective of their political affiliations. He stayed in our balcony, come study, come bedroom, but again, never did my CID neighbor think that that was Dr. Swamy. So, sir, we are really honored that Ville Parle had this association with you. We are equally honored, sir, that those hosts of yours are with us in the audience today, sir. Dr. Swamy's better half, Rakshana, enrolled for law as a mother of two, and is today a very successful Supreme Court advocate and his unwavering partner in every battle, which started out from the day they were going to be evicted from their IIT Delhi house. Even today, she has put down all these memoirs in a beautiful book called Evolving with Subramanian Swamy, a roller coaster ride. That book is available at a discounted price today outside for all of you. Now, Dr. Swamy could speak eloquently on so many topics, right? From economics to Hindutva to finance to law. But based on the feedback we have from all of you, based from what we got to know, we just chose the topic of today. Given the wide interest that his legal pursuits have evoked, we thought that will be something everybody will definitely want to hear. As always, ladies and gentlemen, there is time for question and answers. Our volunteers will be along the sides. If you have a question, just write it down, and we will make sure that it is taken up. So without further ado, Dr. Swamy, please enlighten us about your legal pursuits.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Pranjpe. I've been told to speak in English, so I can speak in English, Tamil, Hindi, Chinese. And I've spoken in all these four in various audiences, but today, because of law and lawyers use English in courts, therefore I think I'll accept his direction and speak in English. I first began thinking about law when, after getting my PhD, probably in the record short period of 1.5 years, which included 6 months of clearing a series of exams and 1 year for writing my thesis, I was taken on the faculty at Harvard as assistant professor to begin with. And at that time, I was very young. I think 24, and I was unmarried, not interested in any American girl anyway. So I had nothing but studying to do. So two things appealed to me. One is I met a girl from Bombay, a Parsi girl called Rakshana Kapadia. And so she once challenged me that Chinese is a very difficult language, no Indian can learn it. So to prove her wrong, I learnt it in 3 months and started conversing in Chinese. I think maybe that's why she consented to marry me. But with her, I've lived now, it's almost 54 years of marriage. I always lose the battle against her because she later trained as a lawyer, and lawyer wife are terrible. So therefore, I thought also, why shouldn't I learn some law? I went to classes at Harvard, but I knew that if I took a degree, then I will probably leave economics, which was my first love. So therefore, I didn't take a degree. And I thought, well, anyway, now that I know law, there's no use for me on it. And I was a professor I came back to India because I didn't want to settle down in America. And I had become associate professor. Then they were going to automatically make me a full professor, requiring me to take a green card, which I didn't want to do. And so decided to come back to India. And I was invited to become professor of Chinese economics at Delhi School of Economics, Delhi, by a person whose name you would know, called Amartya Sen. I didn't know him very well, but he was the department chairman, so he said that we have decided to give you this chair, so your gaddi is being dusted, this is exact words. I came back to India just about the time when the Congress party split and the communists supported the Congress, and then the communists went about trying to capture universities. And I didn't know then before. Then I came to learn that Amartya Sen was also a communist. And the first thing he told me is, your views are very much like the RSS views. I said, I have not been formally a member of RSS, so there's no question. Maybe in my early childhood, I went to play kabaddi in RSS Shaka. But besides that, what has it got to do with anyway? But he said, no, we feel that there's a question of an ambiance of the university. So I was denied that chair. And then, fortunately, I was invited by the IIT Delhi to become a professor, full professor of economics at the age of 28. And I became professor. I taught for 3 years mathematical economics, which the engineering students loved it. But I began going to the students in the dormitory at dinner time and chat with them, address meetings about problems of the country, why the growth rate is so small, 3.5% per year. And finally, I began to formulate the view that India cannot grow under socialism. India needs a market economy. And began and propagated, wrote a book which the Jansang invited me to release in their annual session. It was known as the Swadeshi Plan. And then after the Swadeshi Plan, Mrs. Gandhi got hold of the book, and she knew my family because my great uncle was a great congressman called Satyamurthy, who built the Tamil Nadu unit of the Congress party. And so she told my father that this man has gone mad, going and joining a party which has no future, and addressing them and giving them a economic plan which they never had. So she asked him to leave IIT. So my father said he has never listened to me from childhood. He's not going to listen to me either on this. So you do what you have to do. And so one day she in Parliament took out my book like this and said, here is a professor who's come from America, Harvard University, teaching at IIT, and he says you can, he calls it a Swadeshi plan, and he says you can have 10% growth rate instead of the present 3.5% growth rate. If you have a market economy, you can produce the atom bomb, and you can do away with foreign aid from foreign governments, and all this. This man qualifies to be the Santa Claus of India. And how is he a professor? Well, the next day at 5:15, I got a letter from IIT saying that you're no more professor of IIT. So I went and told the director, I'm a full professor. How can you just send me a letter like this without show cause notice, nothing? He says, I got orders from the top, and you better go to court if you feel you have been injustice being done. Nothing, nobody was ready to come to my support. Of course, I had the emotional support of the RSS at that time. They came, they felt very bad about it. I think Atal Bihari Vajpayee also raised it with the then education minister, Mr. V.K.R.V. Rao, but their mind was made up. And that the communists were particularly keen that I should not be given any position at all because I was corrupting the minds of the students. They considered me a bigger danger than perhaps Hitler himself, and therefore they were adamant. I couldn't get any job anywhere in India. So the choice was left to me, what do? Do I go back or do I stay? So I decided I would stay and go for perhaps one semester a year back to Harvard to teach, to earn some money. That's the time when he said go to court. I began thinking of law. But by the time I filed the case, the emergency came. And in the meantime, the Jansangh decided to send me to Parliament. So I became a member of Rajya Sabha from Uttar Pradesh and came to face with Mrs. Gandhi in very angry moments in the Parliament. I exposed her. First exposure of Sonia Gandhi was her being a Benami insurance agent. And I've never seen Mrs. Gandhi look so red as I saw, but she had to admit, and she admitted that she was due to oversight, and she would resign from these things. From that time, Sonia Gandhi never forgave me, and certainly after much I came to learn about her later on, I have also not forgiven her. And I will tell you about one of the cases by which she will go to jail, which is the National Herald case. But I had because my rising prominence, and thanks to the RSS, Nanaji Deshmukh, Madhurav Mule, all these, and the emergency literally gave me an opportunity to become known in every village. I survived the emergency without getting arrested. I went underground the first day. Nanaji located me and then sent me a message to meet him. Then I met him after 2-3 months as being driver of Nanaji. I stayed with Nanaji. I used to drive his car also to various places. He got arrested. Then Madhurav Mule took over, and then he began looking after me. So I went into Parliament. It's a long story, so I will not give you any description of it. I went into Parliament one day arriving from America. At that time, there was an arrest warrant in my head. I was a proclaimed offender. There was an Interpol notice. There was also a reward on my name and 18 cases. And I landed in Parliament, my own passport. I was traveling on my own passport. And I landed in Delhi, went through customs, and picked up a taxi, went to a hotel. And then, after 5 days, I entered Parliament and made a 1-minute speech. When I entered, just as I calculated, when the obituary was being read out, and the last name of somebody who died in the intercession period, the vice president was presiding over the Rajya Sabha. He read out. I immediately got up on a point of order and said, there's a point of order I have to make, that during this intercession period, democracy has also died. You should have included that in the obituary list. There was stunned silence. People didn't know what to do. Mrs. Gandhi, fortunately, was not there. She was in Lok Sabha. And therefore, the chairman, president said, no point of order. Everybody stand up for 2 minutes silence. So when everybody was standing up, immobilized, I walked out and went to the railway station, took a train to Bombay, came to Dadar, got off, went to Ved Prakash Goyal's house. There, I don't know whether it's the same person or not, but there was one person who then became my GPS. What is it called? Global Positioning Service, which tells you whether to turn right or turn left and do what. And that was Jagdish Baliga, who's sitting here. When I was put up in Ville Parle, morning used to come like clockwork. He was also, of course, being RSS, he was also, of course, target, but he wasn't bothered. He came clockwork with the newspapers. In the evening, he came again, either to take me to meet somebody or to bring letters which were written by my wife, which came through the RSS underground service. And he was a source of strength, because at one stage, even I began to feel that all our leaders are going to crack up, because the emergency, they thought first will last a few months, then it lasted 1.5 years, it was heading to become 2 years. At that time, I think many people were ready to surrender to Mrs. Gandhi. One of the few people who was steadfast, I must also record his name, and that was Moraji Desai. But that time, the only thing that helped us was the law and the lawyers who went to court, fought for little things, and got relief And the process of law as an instrument, like a AK-47, a democratic AK-47, that is the first time I felt, yes, law is the future for India, and that is what we should do. But then after the emergency, I got very busy and I was touring all around. I didn't have much time. But a new phenomenon evoked my interest in law again. And that was defamation cases against me. And every politician whose name I took as having done some corrupt act, Jethmalani would file a defamation case against me. And he filed 4. One on behalf of Ramkrishna Hegde, one on behalf of a mayor of Bombay called Prabhakar Pai, and 2 against in his own name, because he said I had defamed him. Now these defamation cases are a terror to most people. So when Jethmalani filed the first case, which was the Prabhakar Pai case in the Bombay court, no lawyer wanted to take up my defense. And they all said, no, who is going to come against Jethmalani? He controls the registrar, he controls this, he does that, and this tigram and that tigram. And we haven't a chance. You better apologize. I said, I'll never apologize because I never said anything which was not true. So I don't know what to do. But my mother-in-law, Parsi lady, her first cousin was P.R. Vakil, one of the most famous lawyers in criminal law. So she said, I'll give you an introduction to him. So I went and met him. I said, can you appear for me? He said, no, I will not appear against Jethmalani. He is an indecent, uncivilized, uncouth fellow. But he also said, don't say it outside because there will be another defamation case. Of course, I must tell you, Jethmalani and I now are best of friends. And it was he who took the initiative. So anyway, that's a long story, but that law point, he said, I will do one thing. You come to me for tutorials, and I will tell you how to ask questions and elicit answers which will make you win the case. So every time there was a hearing, I would come. Of course, Jethmalani ensured I sat with prostitutes and pickpockets and all that in the court. And I was called last. But I enjoyed the company of these prostitutes. They told me many stories about visiting politicians. So I made... So when my turn came, the first person in a defamation, criminal defamation, is the complainant is cross-examined. So I began the cross-examination, and in the cross-examination, he claimed that he was a very noble citizen of this Bombay. He was a practicing doctor for giving free medicines and so on. So on a tip I got from his fellow congressman, Murli Devra, that Prabhakar Pai never went to medical college. So I asked him, could you give this court a copy of your graduation certificate or Maharashtra Medical Council membership? He said, no, I didn't get that kind of degree. I said, what kind of degree did you get? He said, there was some sansthan in Nagpur which gave him the degree. I said, is it a recognized body? He said, no, it's not a recognized body, but you don't have to be recognized. I said, I told the court, please put that on record, that he has not registered with the Maharashtra Medical Council. He has not got a degree. He's got some certificate. I said, can you produce a certificate? He said, in so many years have gone by, I've lost it. So I said, all right, in that case, you have been giving out allopathic medicines? He said, yes. I said, isn't that a crime? He suddenly broke down crying. He said, I was forced by Jethmalani to file this case. I never wanted to file this case. So then the magistrate, who actually afterwards told me was a great admirer of me for my activities in the emergency, he said, now this case is finished. Would you like me to wind it up? He asked Prabhakar Pai. He said, I don't want any more to come to this court. This is unbearable cross-examination. So the case was dismissed. And thereafter, Jethmalani filed another case with Ramakrishna Hegde. And what happened is, after Ramakrishna Hegde, I had called him a corrupt chief minister. So he filed a defamation case of 100 crores. And then he filed it in Bombay, because Bombay, I don't know whether still is the practice, there's a maximum 15,000 rupees as the fees for the damages that you claim. So in Bangalore, where he was chief minister, there it is 10% of what you claim. So you would have to give 10 crores. But Bombay had a ceiling of 15,000. So he came and filed it here. So that time, I discovered for the first time, studying law is so important. I found there was something called forum's non-convenience, which means that you should only file where justice can be conveniently dispensed with. All the records are in Bangalore. Chief Minister of Karnataka coming to Bombay to file a case. So I went to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court ordered the case to be transferred to Karnataka. And therefore, I knew now in Karnataka it will be an easier thing to do. And in Karnataka, I learned many things about this Civil Procedure Code, which is a wonderful document. And nobody uses it. And for instance, they have something called interrogatories. I think it's Rule 11 or something. Interrogatories, discovery. You can get everything on affidavit from the other side given to the court, all documentation, and on that basis of documentation, you can conduct the whole trial can be completed in a very short time. I'm doing that in National Herald. I will explain that, what the National Herald is all about in a minute. So the law, suddenly law began, my research mind was already there. I was a PhD scholar. I was active in publishing research papers in economics. So I had this discipline. So with that discipline and Mrs. Swamy, during the emergency, she had got actually a degree from Harvard in mathematics. And she was teaching at IIT. And IIT, when they dismissed me, they dismissed her also. And for no reason, she was the most non-political person. But they dismissed her because later on Mrs. Gandhi herself told me in 1980, when she regretfully said that I made a mistake in getting you sacked from IIT, I never thought you will not go back to America, but stay here and be such a headache for me. So therefore, she also had no other go, so she went back to law school in Delhi University and got a degree. And by then she had become an accomplished lawyer. She became junior to Soli Sarabji and later on Fali Nariman. And therefore her knowledge also started increasing. So there, in that context, Mr. Ramakrishna Hegde made the big mistake of filing a case because I started using discovery and interrogatories. I found that he had authorized telephone tapping of 51 people, including his girlfriends, to find out who else they were seeing. And all this I put on record. His son-in-law had bought half of Bangalore on some fraudulent means or there. And then Mr. Ramakrishna Hegde sends me a message, which I have still preserved, that I made a mistake filing this defamation case against you. And it was Mr. Jethmalani who kept on pressing me. And I want to withdraw it. You give me a promise that you won't file a suit for damages after that. Because I'm entitled to that. He has harassed me for all this. I've spent so much money fighting this case. So I said, I have no time to waste filing cases. I'm a politician essentially, so you can be sure. So he withdrew this case, so that was the second case I won. And a few years later, Mr. Ramakrishna Hegde was in deathbed. So he sent word to me that I must see him before he dies. So that, of course, I couldn't say no. So I went and saw him. I wept a lot, told me big mistakes, how if we had worked together, things would have been better, which is, of course, a general rule. If you can work together, that's much better. But anyway, he died, a very regretful man, because I had effectively damaged and sabotaged his chance of becoming Prime Minister of India, because he was going to be projected as the Janata Dal Prime Minister candidate, but he couldn't do it. Now I began looking like a fierce devil, you see. Nobody wanted to file defamation cases against me. Now I could say anything to anybody. And I'll tell you the art by which you can also acquire that reputation. So Jethmalani filed 2 cases against me. The first case he filed is that I had written a letter to Prime Minister Atal Bihari Vajpayee, which Vajpayee had forwarded to him for comments, saying that Mr. Jethmalani has committed the following acts as a minister which are irregular and they must be investigated. So he filed it. And after he thought he'll have an easy way, he didn't have an easy way. And he immediately, in the court, I said, this is privilege. A member of parliament writing to the Prime Minister of his own party, and the Prime Minister forwards it to him, and I've written on it confidential, then how am I guilty of defaming him? So that case was dismissed. Then he filed another case that I had called him corrupt. Well, then I used the interrogatories and discovery and showed that he had a foreign bank account which he had not disclosed and some other things. And then he sent me word that he also decided not to pursue this case. But he is a good man, a fighter, he is a brilliant mind. So I really didn't feel that I should fight him all the way to destruction. So when he said, let's be friends, we are both fighting corruption, he and I have become great buddies now and become very good friends. Sometimes I am able to do that. I fought Jayalalitha, I sent her to jail, but in the end she said, let's be friends. I said, yes, we'll be friends. Now I'm friends with Shashikala also, by the way. That in democracy you do need. There are some enmities I will not give up. The enmity against Sonia Gandhi. Because I know so many things about her, which will take me hours and hours if I tell you. Her father was a Mussolini's youth cadre man. Then he joined Hitler's army and then went to, as part of Hitler's army, to Russia. He was taken prisoner. But then in the prison he capitulated to the KGB, so they let him out quickly. All other soldiers of Hitler's army were not let off for 20 years. But he was let off in 4 years. And he came back and renamed all his children with Russian names. Sonia Gandhi's original name is Antonia. And he changed it to Sonia. And another was Anushka. His name he gave Anushka. Her name was Alexandra. Then Alicia, he changed into some other Russian name. So these 3 girls, he changed Russian names. He became KGB agent. But they were poor. So they sent their daughter Sonia to learn some English from a shop in the town of Cambridge. And then she started working there. First she worked as a waiter, and then afterwards she worked as something else, which I feel in this high society audience I should not mention what. It doesn't look nice. But yeah, you know it already, I think. You must have seen my YouTube, I think. Now, there she began dating Rajiv Gandhi, who was actually a good man. I thought very well of him. Unfortunately, family circumstances ruined him. But she became his wife. In her affidavit to the to the authorities when she stood as a candidate for Lok Sabha for the first time in 2004, she claimed that she had got a degree in English literature from Cambridge University. Now, I had gone to give a lecture in the economics department of Cambridge University, and I casually asked at dinner time, was she a good student? They said, what? She was never a student here. So I said, really? Can you give it to me in writing? They said, yes. The registrar of the university gave it to me in writing. There we have no students by the name of all the other names also I gave. Sonia Gandhi, Antonia Gandhi, and Edwige, all 3-4 names I found out she had. And I got a birth certificate also, I gave that also. And asked for the clarity, and they gave me a reply that there was never any student by any of these names. So I gave it to Manoj Joshi, who was that time the speaker. And the speaker then sent it to her for an explanation, and she wrote back to say it was a printing mistake. So Manoj Joshi asked me, "Ab kya kare? What to do?" So I said, send it to the Guinness Book of World Record as the longest printing mistake in the history. How can a printing mistake be studied in the University of Cambridge and got a degree in English literature? So anyway, so that I took to court, saying that disqualify her. Now, her friend was a friendly person was the judge, Justice Balakrishnan, Chief Justice. He heard my argument and he said, now be generous. It's a long time. She won't do it again. So I said, if this is how you feel, I will not pursue it. So because his mind was made up, so I didn't push. I said, okay. And sure enough, all her subsequent affidavits as a candidate, she has removed that reference to Cambridge University. Now, Rahul Gandhi also claimed that he was studied in the University of Cambridge and got MPhil. I found out that he never got any MPhil. He did go to Cambridge, but he failed in the economics exam. So therefore, he doesn't have anything from Cambridge. He got in Cambridge on the recommendation of the housemaster of King's College, which was Amartya Sen. So Amartya Sen had an Italian wife, so it made it easier also. He had ditched his Bengali wife and married again. So I'm waiting to file against Rahul Gandhi. In the meantime, I have discovered that Mr. Rahul Gandhi has filled forms for the formation of a company in London called Backops, in which he, in his own signature, he says, I am a citizen of Britain. So I have given this to, I had originally given it to the speaker, Sumitra Mahajan, and she was very quick. She sent it to the ethics committee headed by Advani. But Advani is going in what is called as slow motion. So now I have approached the Home Ministry that under the Citizenship Act, the notice should be issued, that very soon will be issued. I don't know whether he can remain an Indian citizen. Anyway, he has 2 passports, so he has no problem. He can leave on the second passport. The first is taken away. Now, these are all issues which any citizen can file in court. So, how does one go to court? Before I tell you about the National Herald case and the electronic voting machine case and ultimately the Ram Sethu case, all cases which I'm going to win or will win, and the Ram Mandir case, which is the last as a dessert for you. What is the technique, you see? I am not a lawyer. I have no law degree. How do I practice? In public interest, I am defending myself. So the law allows you to defend yourself and or file a case on your own behalf. Public interest means on your own behalf plus all the citizens of India. So that is also permitted. And furthermore, if somebody wants me actually to argue for them, then they can file a petition under Section 32 of the Advocates Act, which permits non-advocates to argue, provided the person writes, I want Mr. Swamy and nobody else to argue for me, I have no other confidence in anybody else, then the court will give you that. And I have done it once or twice for some people. And consequently, I will say that any of you, if you learn law, it's not necessary for you to be enrolled. You can get, if you want to not do it as a profession but as a social service, then even individuals who are friends of yours you can defend by this. So, in the case of National Herald, this is an open shut case. There's no way they can escape. And after that, I think I should also tell you something about Chidambaram and his son. Because they are very similar in nature. National Herald was a newspaper printed by a company called Associated Journals Limited, which was set up in 1937 by 11 people. Jawaharlal Nehru bought one share for 10 rupees. Acharya Narendra Dev bought 25 shares for 10 rupees each. Rafi Ahmad Kidwai, Kailash Nath Kadju, all these freedom fighters, they all together constituted a society, and ultimately it became a company and a private limited company. And this private limited company began publishing National Herald, Qaumi Awaz, Navjivan. And during the freedom struggle, people used to buy it because it used to give news about the freedom struggle. After 1947, Jawaharlal Nehru became Prime Minister. So then they got largesse from the government, land in the name of public interest. The government gave to many newspapers. So this whole Bahadur Shah Zafar Marg in Delhi, a prime area. There is Times of India, there is Indian Express, there is XY newspaper, there is also National Herald. And National Herald has got a huge property. And they got properties in Bhopal, they got properties in Bombay, in Bandra, where they are built as a residential skyscraper illegally. And this is presently under investigation of the Maharashtra government. And in Panchkula near Chandigarh, Indore, and a total of 5,000 crores worth of property the company acquired. But in 2008, it closed down, saying that we have run up a debt of 90 crores owned to Congress party, which we are not able to repay, which is a lie, because they have 5,000 crores worth of property. All right, so they closed it down. 90 crores they can't pay, owed to the Congress party. So immediately after that, a new company was incorporated called Young Indian. And that Young Indian had Sonia Gandhi, Rahul Gandhi, Motilal Vora, Oscar Fernandez, Suman Dubey, then that Sam Pitroda. These 6 people. These 6 people became 4 of them became shareholders, 2 of them became non-shareholder directors. Sonia Gandhi had 40%, Rahul Gandhi had 40%, that's 80%, Motilal Vora 10%, Oscar Fernandez 10%. So they had a meeting, total paid up capital only 5 lakh rupees. Now they have first meeting. That Motilal Vora, as director, should go and meet the treasurer of Congress party and tell the Congress party, you can't recover this 90 crores because they say they are not in a position to pay, therefore closing down. So this is a dud debt for you. So instead of a dud debt, we give you 50 lakhs and you assign it to us. That is, the debt becomes mine. Okay, so the Congress party was very excited by this offer, particularly since the treasurer was also Motilal Vora. So Motilal Vora spoke to Motilal Vora and got the debt assigned to Young Indian. And how did a 5 lakh company get 50 lakhs to give? I found that there was some company in Calcutta which professionally, openly converts black money into white by something called entry point or something like that. See? And so that is also another side criminal activity which is being investigated by the Enforcement Directorate. Now, after that, Motilal Vora has one more hurdle to cross, and that is to get the board of directors of the Associated Journals Limited to pass a resolution to make this debt, recognize this debt as owed to Young Indian, which is 80% owned by the mother and son. So Motilal Vora goes and talks to the chairman, and the chairman assures, I'll call a board and get a resolution passed that we should hand it over to you in any form that you want. And so they decide that they will issue 90 crore new shares of 10 rupees each. That's 90 crores. Now 9 crores of 10 rupees. Why 10 rupees? There's 10 rupees in 1937. Now they got 5,000 crores worth of property. So there should have been a re-evaluation of the share value and would have been much more than 10 rupees. But they didn't do that. They said 10 rupees. And they decide to give it. So 9 crores of 10 rupees each share tantamounts to 99.1% of the total share capital of Associated Journals. And it was, people were all happy because the chairman of the board of Associated Journals was also Motilal Vora. So again, Motilal Vora spoke to Motilal Vora and convinced him, and they got this done without a shareholders meeting, nothing of the kind, and therefore Young Indian became the owner. This is the fraud. It's a fraud of various times. 420. The second is criminal misappropriation. Criminal misappropriation is a crime under the Criminal Procedure Code. And then it is also criminal breach of trust. Conspiracy is obvious. Motilal Vora talking to Motilal Vora, talking to Motilal Vora. I don't have to prove any conspiracy. It's obvious. It's an open shut case. And they were in power at that time when I filed this. But a young lady magistrate, just fresh in, name was Manocha was her last name. I think first name was Gita. She was thoroughly studied and wrote a 21-page judgment, and summoned them to come to the court. And they went in appeal to Supreme Court, and Supreme Court took my side, and High Court also took my side. And so, therefore, they had to appear. Appear means when you appear on a summons of this kind, you are first arrested, and you may or may not be given bail. So on that day, they appeared in court. And of course, I was sitting. They all gave me dirty glares, but I didn't mind. I got pleasure in getting dirty glares. Then the court magistrate said, stand in the corner. You can't sit, because the congressmen were all trying to give chairs for them to sit. No, they had to stand. Then they were told that they are arrested. Do you want to apply for bail? Then I was asked, do you want to oppose the bail? Now, I took the totality of circumstances. If they are convicted and sent to jail, fine. But for interrogation purposes, further proceedings, this putting people in jail as a precautionary way, I thought would not be proper. So I said, and I also got good advice from where it mattered in my party, that abhi chhod do, नहीं तो हंगामा हो जाएगा. रोज भजन मंडली बैठ जाएंगे तिहार के बाहर और गाना गाएंगे और छोला भटूरा बांटते रहेंगे. So therefore it didn't make sense. So I said, no, I have no objection, but they have to give a bond and they have to give a surety. So Sonia Gandhi gave 50,000 rupees as a bond, and she also had to give a surety, which is a human being who will be arrested in case she escapes, and that was Anthony. Poor Anthony was he was sweating quite a lot. He was in court. Rahul Gandhi gave 50,000 and gave Priyanka Gandhi as surety. And she was crying throughout. All big, very heroes, you see, outside. But in court, they were all crying. And then after that, the court listed it for framing of charges. And that is in final stages. My case is totally on documents. So I have used interrogatories and discovery. I've asked for documents. The Congress is opposing it tooth and nail. No, this is all fishing expedition and all that. But I'm sure I'm going to get the documents. They're all government documents. Some documents are from Congress. I'm asking them to show the accounts where they've given the money to National Herald. Because congressmen have privately told me, and this is Congress, it leaks from top to bottom. They told me there is no such account of giving money to National Herald. If at all they gave, they must have given it in black. I have asked by interrogatories from National Herald, Associated Journals, please show me your accounts where you have received this money. They are not able to show. So they are fighting it tooth and nail. And of course, I must tell you, I'm after all member of the ruling party. And getting documents is not a problem for me. But I want it through the court. And I might confront the court one day, saying that, all right, they are not, or they are objecting, here is the document, tell them to deny it. So this case should start moving fast from December. And March, June, I think by April, we should have a conviction, and they should all be heading for Tihar jail. I don't know whether you have heard me say this before or seen on YouTube my saying, one complaint I have got from Tihar jail superintendent. He told me, he knows me, so he told me, अभी राजा को भेज रहे हो, कन्याकुमारी को भेज रहे हो, बाद में चिदम्बरम और का बेटा आएगा, हम तो मुसीबत हमारी बढ़ा रहे हो. I said, why? He said, वो सब आकर इडली डोसा मांग रहे हैं, हमारी बावर्ची तो सिर्फ आलू पूरी जानता है. So I said, what happens? Somebody comes and asks for pizza and spaghetti. So, soon after all these people, all my cases go on, you will find them inside the Tihar jail holding their next Congress working committee. So, Congress working committee will be in Tihar jail. How is it so simple? I filed a private complaint under section 190 of the CRPC. Anyone can file it. So many people I interviewed, thinking a citizen can file a complaint like a policeman. He said, no, not at all. You have to file an FIR. No, FIR is an alternative. Most people don't teach you that. And private complaint under 190, then the magistrate will question you, and then what else further, she may order further inquiry also. She may even ask the police to do inquiry on behalf of the court. And then the summons will be issued. That's how the procedure goes. Otherwise, the policeman registers FIR, he investigates, then he files a final report, and then the court orders the question of framing the charges. For framing charges, they will hold an inquiry. So there are two routes. One is for the citizen, and the other is for the police. If police doesn't do it, you can do it. Most people don't know this. And no lawyer is going to tell you, because then you will not need lawyers after that. In fact, jokingly, many lawyers complain that Swamy is ruining our business. But if there is no plaintiff, there is no petitioner, there will be no lawyers. Because the court has to have some petitioners. You see, otherwise there is no business for the court. So, therefore, criminal law empowers the citizen. Please learn that. The same way, there is another part of our constitution which gives you enormous power. That is called Article 32 and Article 226. Both these articles of the constitution give you a right to file a case which you say is affecting public interest. I filed on this EVMs, that EVMs without a voter slip, which is now called VVPAT, voter verifiable some A, some word, some VVPAT is the way. Voter verifiable, I remember. This is the first two VVs. That is, your screen is there. When you press the button, you can see which is the candidate who has been selected. And then a slip comes down. That you can't touch, but you can see. That tells you whom you have voted for. It drops into a box. And the box is sealed. And if there is a dispute, the box is counted and not rerun of the same machine. Because just now, without the VVPAT, the machine, if there is a dispute, election dispute, then the same electronic voting machine is rerun. You're asking the same machine whether you have made a mistake or not, it will never do. So to correct for that, I brought this in. And what did I do? I filed a petition in the Supreme Court under 32, Article 32, saying my fundamental rights have been infringed because there is doubt, and I proved to them that how it can be rigged. You know that the electronic voting machine, the brain of the electronic voting machine is a chip. Is the chip produced in India? No. It is produced in Japan. And in Japan, it is produced by a private limited company. Now, Bharat Electronics doesn't produce it, nor the Electronic Corporation of India produce it. A private company in Japan produces it. So you can imagine how vulnerable it is. There is no safeguards for it. And they can program the chip in such a way that you can sit in a distance with a mobile phone and you can feed in the data which will correct what the data exists. Or it will put into that you will get 1 vote and your remaining 9 votes for every 10 votes will go to other people. So the electronic voting machine can be rigged. And so I asked the Japanese, in your Japanese election, don't you feel frightened that this kind of thing, in the hands of a private company will rig your electronic voting machine? He said, what electronic machine? We don't use electronic machines in Japan. We use ballot papers. Germany, Supreme Court ruled there. No electronic voting machine. And they said ballot papers. So since the last 10 years, Germany has been using ballot papers. England uses ballot papers. United States largely uses ballot papers, except occasionally supporting systems they have electronic. There is no democratic country I know which uses electronic voting machines. Nigeria uses electronic voting machines. They bought it from India. So when I was arguing the case, the Election Commission said, there's big demand from foreign countries for our machine, and our own people are demeaning it. So I asked the court, please ask them which countries. So he says, Nigeria and Venezuela. Venezuela is a dictatorship. Nigeria is a dictatorship. And they also said that Malaysia is showing some interest in it. Well, these are countries that are not democratic. But I will still say that electronic voting machine with VVPAT, the probability of it being genuine will be more than 95%. No electronic machines are unriggable. Everything is hackable. But some are more difficult, some are more easy. Electronic voting machines with VVPAT means that you are probably secure in the election results. Now the Congress party is making a big hullabaloo about it. They're even quoting my judgment, which has appeared in 2014 Supreme Court cases. But at that time, they were virulently opposing me, saying that, they're looking for excuses for having lost the election, etc. But today, they recognize that. But so, this is something that I did just by filing under Article 32 of the Constitution. In Delhi, you can file under 226. And Delhi, 226 is much wider. I filed the Sunanda murder case in Article 226 and said that she dies in 17th January 2014 and no FIR for the whole year. Finally, I wrote a stiff letter to Rajnath Rajnath fired the police, and they fired it after 1 year of her death. They filed an FIR. The autopsy report or the postmortem report, that says that she died of unnatural causes due to poisoning. Now, the husband should be in my support, but the husband is attacking me, saying that why is this man raking up this? She died of natural causes. How does he know? So, therefore, there was something she had threatened to expose the IPL fraud in which she was a party. And they were all scared that all their names will come out. IPL is the biggest fraud controlled by Dawood Ibrahim, I'm telling you. And the amount of money that is laundered through that is unbelievable. We have to clean it up. Supreme Court has done quite a lot of good work by restructuring BCCI, but the money is so much that even good officers, even if you appoint them, they can find temptation very difficult. So that, you see, finally it went before Justice Shishtani in Delhi High Court. He saw the merit in what I said. He asked the police, give us a timeline by which you will decide. 6 hearings went where I had to convince the court that the police had been deliberately delaying the hearing. All of a sudden, on the 7th hearing, when the Delhi police was to go to provide the answer on which date they will close it, we get a new judge. Now, I know this new judge because when I was law minister in 1990-91, I had appointed a very good man as Attorney General called G. Ramaswamy. He was his junior. And my first recollection of him is that he came to serve me tea, as the juniors are prone to do for lawyers, I think. You can ask the lawyers here what they make their juniors do. But the fact is that he was in that. There were other factors which he was left wing, I was right wing. There was I was a Sanghi, as they called me. So there was that tension. Now suddenly he parachutes into this case. And instead of taking up the police affidavit and the status report, he starts by saying, you have made lots of accusations. Why didn't you say in your petition that you are BJP? I say, is there anybody in the country who doesn't know I'm from BJP? He says, I don't know. I said, well, you should have. I've said I'm a member of parliament, so I must be a member of some party. And I've said that I was cabinet minister of such and such government. So, but he said, no, I think you have prejudiced, you are making political capital out of this. I'm dismissing the case. I have never seen such rocket speed dismissal of a case. Well, I have a motto, give as good as you get. So the judge will hear from me soon in a formatted way in which he will understand. But that was clearly a motivated judgment, in the sense it was a lack of application of mind. So you have that problem. But I will say, by and large, our judiciary is, time factor? No. By and large, the judiciary is good, better than most countries of the world. And almost as independent as the American court system. So people run down our court system. Do you know that how much our judges work? Supreme Court, United States, considers only 200 cases a year. In our Supreme Court, they consider 200 cases per day. What a load. Supreme Court in the United States says the person who is a petitioner, he will be given 20 minutes to state his case. The respondent will be given 20 minutes to state his case. And the petitioner again will be given 10 minutes to rebut that case. In our country, every lawyer, especially the senior lawyers, they argue for days because they get paid by days. So they are daily wage basis. So go on arguing, hours and hours. Once, when I was law minister, I decided that there should be some limit. So I said, why not make discovery and interrogatories compulsory? so that all this document producing, verifying this thing, can be all done before reaching the court. So the Chief Justice called me up and said, I hear you are planning to bring out an amendment to the CPC to make this compulsory, that no matter will go to trial unless this is compulsorily done, first done. He says, please don't do it. I said, why? It is there already in the CPC. A provision is there that you can do it. That is, you can use interrogatories and discovery. But I'm making it compulsory. What is wrong? He said, all the lawyers will go on strike. So I said, why? He says they will have to do their homework, which they don't want to do. Most of them believe in arguing the matter, and in the process of argument thinking of news. So therefore don't do it. So I could not do it, because lawyers also told me that no, this is not suitable for India. You're getting all these American ideas, please give it up. So I could not do it when I was law minister. But I think that this is something that we must do. Now, in the case of Mr. Chidambaram, who is supposed to be a lawyer, and I must tell you, he reminded me in 1977, and he must be regretting that he reminded me, that he was my student while I was teaching at Harvard. So I didn't remember him. So I went back to my grade sheets, where I've maintained marks over the years that I had been professor. And I found that he was a student from the business school, taking one of my compulsory courses and getting a C. That means fail. So, naturally, he's not well disposed to me. But the fact of the matter is that I'll give one case, Aircel-Maxis. What is Aircel-Maxis case on which his son has been raided and all that? Now Chidambaram is also going to be brought into the net. There was an Indian company called Aircel in Madras, and its shares were 100% owned by the owner. Now, a Malaysian company called Maxis, owned by one Anantakrishnan, formerly of Sri Lanka, and settled there. Maybe his LTT also, I don't know. But he wanted to buy an Indian company by buying the shares of that company. Indian law under foreign direct investment says no foreigner can buy more than 74% of the share capital of any Indian company, and the rest 26% must be owned by an Indian. So this gentleman, what he does, this Maxis gentleman, this Anantakrishnan, he creates an Indian company with a lady as chairman who has nothing to do with telecom, and then finances the 26% purchase with a proviso in the agreement with that company that whenever the financier, which is one of his companies, wants to re-own the shares, he is entitled to do so. So this 26% company, called some Scindia Securities or something, comes in as the Indian partner. The deal is cleared by Mr. Chidambaram. He approves it as finance minister, the Foreign Investment Promotion Board. Now, first of all, Mr. Chidambaram in his defense says, I cleared it because all the bureaucrats signed it and sent it to me, that is for clearance. Yes, the bureaucrats say they have met all the conditions, but the approval means you have to yourself see that everything is done according to law. And that is a Supreme Court judgment called Shamsher Singh versus the Union of India, which is a constitutional bench judgment, which says that the constitution and the law recognizes only the minister. The bureaucrats may be given it may be decentralized, delegated, anything, but that has no value at all. The responsibility for approval given for such things as FIPB or approval by the minister for anything. The minister is responsible solely. That's a constitutional bench judgment. So therefore he gave this clearance. So he should have investigated that what is this India Securities, where it is money coming from. It would have been there obvious itself that it's a Benami company of Mr. Ananthakrishnan. He didn't do that. Second, if the foreign direct investment is more than 600 crores at that time, 2006, then it has to necessarily go to the Cabinet Committee on Economic Affairs. Of course, Mr. Chidambaram as Finance Minister is also a member of that. But he didn't send it. He cleared it. He should have known that it is over 600, it was 4,000 crores. So it was more than 600 crores. So he should have sent it to the Cabinet Committee on that. And Cabinet Committee compulsorily would then refer it to the Home Ministry for security clearance. And security clearance would have shown that 27% of the shares of Maxis is owned by Saudi Telecom, which has a partnership with Pakistan Telecom. So they would not have given security clearance. And knowing this, Chidambaram himself cleared it. So he is caught on the third thing is the Prevention of Corruption Act says that if the minister is caught taking bribe, etc., 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 but 13(1)(d) part 3 of the Prevention of Corruption Act says that even if the minister does not take a bribe, but he enables somebody else to get pecuniary benefits, then also the minister can be prosecuted. He is culpable in the crime. Karti Chidambaram had beautifully benefited. He had 21 bank accounts abroad. He had a mansion jointly owned with his father in Cambridge University campus, not campus, but the Cambridge town. I mean, it's a total disproportionate to his known sources of income. And Karti is now been raided, everything has been documented. Now the matter comes up to Mr. Chidambaram that he approved it, and so therefore you have to be prosecuted. His father and son both better pack up their bags because it's an open shut case. And wife is not going to be left behind, which is that not fair. She is caught up in the Sharda chit fund. She was a lawyer for one party and she took money from the other party to advise him how to lose the case. I don't know what she did, but she's being prosecuted by CBI in that also. So there will be a family reunion. Here Vadra and Rahul and Sonia, another family. And all the families are, we are not being cruel in this. We are taking care that the families are not divided in this matter. Now, last question I will say. I had one wanted to do, I think in 2 minutes I'll do. This defamation case, I took it to the Supreme Court, where I failed. I nearly succeeded, but my government was dead against my winning it. They put up a real battery of lawyers to oppose me. And that was this. Should you be sent to jail for something you said, which may be defamatory? I think all over the world now the trend is that you can be sued, you can be made culpable for damages, but you should not be sent to prison, because prison is a traumatic experience, especially for well-to-do people. You say something, somebody distorts it and publishes it, and then there's a defamation case, then you have to go to court, and it's a criminal court. So the criminalization of defamation, I said, should be declared as unconstitutional. That is the international practice. That is the United Nations resolutions also. And it's a world over, democratic countries are getting rid of it. And they are only keeping suit for damages. And suit for damages, the Americans, and on one of my earlier cases in 1994, the Supreme Court of India said that if a public person, a public figure files for defamation for damages, then the onus will shift on him to prove that what was said about him was not only not true, but the maker of that defamation knew it was not true and yet he made it. That is called reckless disregard of the truth. That's the American law. So no public figure there can ever succeed in a defamation case. Why? Because who will be able to prove that? And why are this thing done for the public figures? Because the Supreme Court of America says that a public figure can hold a press conference and say, this is all rubbish, I challenge him to prove it. Or have some, let's have a joint press conference and see who gets the better of the, convinces the press more or the public more. So the public person has a right to go to the media, and he has access to the media to make, and therefore he should be subject to a stricter standard than an ordinary person, an ordinary shopkeeper, an ordinary salesman who is defamed, who loses his entire business, but he is not in a position unless he is given the right for criminal defamation. So therefore, criminal defamation is there, it should be only restricted to non-public persons, but unfortunately the Supreme Court accepted all my arguments, but somehow in the last paragraph they said, however, we think that criminal defamation should continue as a salutary measure, etc. But I'll again rake it up somewhere else and bring it in and again argue the matter when the new bench is constituted, when new Chief Justice comes. Mr. Gogoi is the next. So because the man who rejected my petition is presently Chief Justice, so I'll have to wait till he retires and goes. But he's a very good judge, must I say. I have a very high regard for him. He's listening to me on the Ram temple matter.
Which
now,
you would like to hear, sir.
Now, what is this Ram temple all about? In short, are we going to win this case? 120% certain. I won the Ram Sethu case when nobody thought I could win it. The Chief Justice, Mr. Balakrishnan, said to an earlier set of people, there were Dharmacharyas, Shankaracharyas and people of various mutts, every one of them were brought together by Sudarshan ji of RSS and Vishwabandhu Parishad's Ashok Singhal. And they had gone in the Ram Sethu issue, saying that the Sethu Samudram project proposed by the UPA government will to cut through, a canal to cut through the Ram Sethu. See, if you look at the map of India, the southern coast is like that, Sri Lanka is like that, and an island juts out which is called Rameshwaram Island. Old days it used to be called Pamban Island, now we call it Rameshwaram Island. It ends in a place called Dhanushkodi, where you remember Ramchandraji took out his Agni Band. So Dhanushkodi it ends, and from there Ram Sethu starts. And it goes up to Sri Lanka coast. And there you can, if you walk on it, you can reach Sri Lanka by walking. So, therefore, Rameshwaram Island plus Ram Sethu, these two block any ship from going through the Gulf of Mannar and the Pak Strait. So, every ship which comes to Kanyakumari or to Tuticorin has to go around Sri Lanka to go to Chennai or to Visakhapatnam or even to Calcutta. So, therefore, it is more time consuming, more expensive. So in the interest of development, you cut because it's a shallow base, the bed of the ocean is shallow. So therefore, it's only not enough to clear big ships. So they decide to cut a canal on the ground of that Pak Strait and Gulf of Mannar, and cut through Ram Sethu so that ships can go through. This was their plan. Of course, privately, Karunanidhi said that to Muslims that they demolished Babri Masjid, so I will demolish Ram Sethu for you. and so kindly vote for me. That's the kind of propaganda he was doing. And of course, Sonia Gandhi, as a good Christian, she was also enjoying this, fully supporting him on that, in public meetings and all that. So now, I don't know what the people, all these sadhu sannyasis got agitated, so they came together, signed a big petition, they filed the petition, Supreme Court dismissed it. That is reckless. Development cannot suffer like this on an imaginary idea of Ram Sethu. So Supreme Court was very hostile. So then I was approached. I said, well, they have already got a case dismissed, I can't go again. There's find some way, because most people don't know the law, so they think there's always some way. So I said, okay, if Ramchandraji wants me to save Ram Sethu, he'll put some idea into my brain. So I started thinking. Then I found the way. The way was that I went to court and I raised the same objections as the sadhu sannyasis raised. Namely, that this will break Ram Sethu, etc., it will hurt our faith and all that. But I added one paragraph, that if the purpose of the Sethu Samudram project was to enable ships to go through, or the luggage or the cargo to go through in a shorter distance, then we have to consider the 3,600 crore project vis-a-vis an alternative way of sending this luggage or this cargo to Chennai and Visakhapatnam in Calcutta. And I produced, thanks to a friend, and I would say Ramchandraji, that there was a study by the Planning Commission that if the ships which come can, the Tuticorin port could be converted into a container port, then they can drop that cargo in Tuticorin, and a railway line can be built along the coast of and up to Calcutta, and that cost will be only 600 crores. So I went to court, and the court was very angry with me. So why have you come? Don't you know that they have dismissed it? I said, they have dismissed it on religious grounds. I am not on religious grounds. I am worried about my government's, the country's exchequer, the consolidated accounts of India. And on the consolidated fund, you can't withdraw money like this. 3,600 crores for what can be achieved with 600 crores. Therefore, the alternative is cheaper, and you have to consider it. Therefore, this is arbitrary, this is unreasonable, and this is therefore, defrauding the public exchequer, etc. The court got convinced. It said, all right, we will hear your matter. And then the process started of hearing the matter. I convinced the court that if you really want to move cargo faster, instead of going around Sri Lanka, then put through the railway line. So now the government of the UPA resisted it tooth and nail. They went on raising all kinds of questions. One question they persuaded the judge to ask me. He said, Mr. Swamy, tell me, do you really mean to say that people will go to the middle of the ocean to worship Ram Sethu? So I said, Your Lordship, every morning I worship to Lord Surya Bhagwan, and I don't go to Surya and come back. And the judge's name was Ravindran. I said, your name is Ravindran, you should at least know this. So, like that, you see, once I said this is Ram Sethu, so Karunanidhi got very upset. He said, who is he to say it's Ram Sethu? Was Rama an engineer? Which engineering college did he go to? How do I answer that? But Ramchandraji answered. Next day he fell sick. So he had to be admitted to hospital. Hospital's name was Ramchandra Medical Hospital. So I sent a message to Karunanidhi, get well soon, but are you sure he's got an MBBS at least? So this is the kind of, this is a skill which you have to acquire by experience. You can't, there's no book which will teach you this. That I came up, anything, any policy, Normally, Supreme Court will not accept any policies. But if the policy is arbitrary, if it is unreasonable, if it is illegal, then the Supreme Court will intervene. And that is what I am doing in many of these cases. The Jet Etihad case, which is coming up, the 2G spectrum, what did I do? I said if they had auctioned the spectrum, they would have got 10 times the revenue they got by the method they adopted, and therefore cancel it. And the court cancelled it. And today the government is getting more revenue from auctioning than income tax. So I'm saying abolish income tax. Now I've given you another method of raising resources. Same thing we did with coal. That also going for auction. 11 lakh crores you will get in that. So the law has now become an instrument by which the government can be kept in check. And therefore it's a great profession. I would advise everybody to learn it, because you become strong. If a policeman comes to your house, you know how to deal with him. Today people get frightened. Oh, a policeman aa gaya, you see. I have all these securities, all these CRPs, and when I end up going to somebody's house, they think that I'm raiding their house, you see. Poor chaps have to give an explanation. So the fear of the law is not a good thing. Respect for the law, yes, but you should love the law, and the law can be used in your favor. And of course, I'll put all the lawyers out of business by making you do that. There's a story that in hell there was a football match going on. So somebody kicked the ball very hard. So it hit the wall dividing heaven and hell, and the wall collapsed. So the heaven people came and said, hey, you've broken the law, I've broken the wall, kindly rebuild it. They said, why we should rebuild it? You're afraid of our coming there. We are not afraid of your coming here. So you build it. So they said, oh, you don't agree, okay, we'll go to Brahma's court and have this settled. So both started searching for the best lawyers, and on the day of the hearing, the hell people came with large number of top lawyers, but the heaven people couldn't find a single lawyer. So you know where the lawyers end up. Even if you are a doctor, even if you are an engineer, even if you are a housewife, there is a way to learn law online. It's not difficult. And you need to know basic concepts, what your rights are. When you can be arrested, when you can't be arrested, when you can be, the police can come to your house, when you can be called to the police station, when you cannot be called. All these things are simple things. These are social rules. And the law is the way. It's no use saying the law is corrupt, judges are corrupt. This cynicism is not going to improve society. I myself entered politics in 1970, and today I will say we are a much more democratic society today than we were in 1970. And we have to continue this, because we have come after, 1,000 years of foreign invasions and so on. And consequently, you now need to have an approach that this society has to be restructured, and for that we have to keep fighting without worrying whether you're going to win or lose. And there you'll create a chemistry by which you will see that ultimately every one of you individually becomes strong, then the country becomes strong, and then only the country becomes strong. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. We have a few questions. So we'll just begin our question answers.
Sure.
And I think, I did mention, the date of your birth, so everybody knows that you're now 75 plus.
I'm 78.
I know. So, sir, the first question, in the midst of all this, where do you really get all the energy? And second, it's not that you haven't had setbacks. So really, how do you come back and fight it out again?
Well, it's all actually, if I give you a general answer, I'll say it's all there in Bhagavad Gita. But I had the benefit of some of the most venerated sadhus of India, like the Shankaracharya of Kanchi, who is now no more. He lived to 100, but and Swami Dayanand Saraswati, and many others. And my own reading of our spiritual books, that the first thing that human being suffers from is the fear of the future. If you have a fear of the future, then you can never be an energetic person, because you are all the time worrying what will be the outcome, what will happen, this happen, if this doesn't happen, that will happen. You have to have the conviction, this has to be done, I will do it, I don't care for the consequences. Of course, you may consult a large number of people, all your friends, but the conclusion making should not be, you should work for a goal, but achieving that goal is not your right. The right to act is your right. That's Krishna Bhagavan, classic Krishna Bhagavan's thing. Second is, we are all the time worried about criticism, and it creates stress in you. People ask me, don't you feel stressed? I said, no, I transfer it to other people. The moment people see me, they start getting stress, you see. So the fact is that these are very simple things which our ancient people have taught. And this is one of the problems of our education. It has made us so materialistic that we think that we must have more and more and more money. Whatever the means, you get it. That is the way you are measured. That is not the way our ancient society was measured. Americans brought this to my attention when they asked me, how can you follow Mahatma Gandhi who can't even dress properly? He's half naked. Now that's something, you see. In India, if you are both a Jnani and a Tyagi, you are more venerated than the richest man in the country. That is our tradition. That tradition has to come back. So, Rana Pratap, he was defeated, but people venerate him much more than the highly successful Raja of Jaipur. They think Jaipur lived all the Rajas of Jaipur lived very comfortably all their life because they had made a deal with the Mughals. But this man ate grass to survive in a forest, Rana Pratap, and he is the most venerated. That's our society, that's why we were happy. And in fact, all these foreigners who are coming to Sri Ravi Shankar and Baba Ramdev, etc., they all tell me the same thing. That in America we can get comfort, we can get wealth, but happiness we learn only in India. That's why we have come. So this is, I really don't care if I'm not made a minister, because I know when my time comes, nobody can stop me, even Narendra Modi can't stop me. In 2014, and I was suddenly told, no, you can't contest for Lok Sabha. I said, no problem. When the time comes, you will have to bring me in. And it came, and I became. And I became in 2016, which means my term lasts till 2022, after 2019. So I can happily campaign in 2019 without worrying whether I'm going to come back or not. So, also I have found failure has always been, in my case, I'm sure it is for everybody, actually an opening of something bigger. IIT sacked me from my professorship, I became cabinet minister, I became well known in the country. The IIT students are still as crazy to get me to lecture. I'm better off than if I had remained as IIT professor. I would have retired, got my provident fund and sat at home and watched television. That would have been my position today. Now at 78, I'm still whizzing around doing whatever I like and wherever I want to go. So that is the way to get rid of stress. Is the most damaging thing for you. Never be disappointed. Always say to all your friends that not that I'm going to get this is what I'm working for, I'm going to work very hard for it, I'll do my best to my satisfaction, but the result is up to upstairs. Okay? So then you'll never have a problem.
So you expressed your opinion about the judiciary and the courts, but two questions which concern a lot of people nowadays, and I'll put both of them together. First, your view on the current sort of things which we see, especially on what people call either a judicial outreach or judicial activism. And second, and maybe is it a perception or is it really that some of this judicial outreach is impacting one religion more than the other, especially in the case of, we saw the Diwali crackers and Jallikattu, etc. So your opinion on this?
Two things. First of all, our judiciary did strike down triple talaq. It is something which was very dear to the mullahs. So, and the women of Muslim community are thrilled about it. They are voting for BJP, by the way. We didn't do it because of that. We believe that, our tradition is that women and men intellectually are equal. Physical world is now over. Now it's all mental world. It's all brains now. The 21st century is on innovations, brains and so on. If you look at Brahma's cabinet, you see all the important portfolios are with women gods. Defense with Durga, finance with Lakshmi, education with Saraswati. Tell me what the men have got. Information broadcasting for Narad Muni. Women have been warriors. Rani Jhansi, Rani Chennamma in Karnataka. They have, or they have been advisors like Shivaji's mother. So, therefore, you see, as far as the courts are concerned, it depends on how you put the case before them. All religious practices are subject to reasonable restrictions. If somebody shows that bursting of crackers is a restriction which is reasonable because it does pollution or it hurts your eardrums, or the court could have said that, well, you must not have such a high decibel for crackers. But our own government said, put a ban on it. Now, when the government is pleading, what can the courts do? They can't say, no, we reject you. They are the petitioners and they are in part of the court as a party, and our government environment ministry says, under pressure perhaps from Maneka Gandhi, I don't know, but the fact is they did. Jallikattu. Jallikattu, finally I went and argued, and the court knew that they will have to set aside the previous judgment. The previous judgment was motivated by a NGO, and it was a bad judgment. It was targeted against the Hindu practice, true. I went and argued that not a single human being has been killed in Jallikattu. Not a single bull has been killed. Human beings have been killed. So how can you say this cruelty to animals unless you are classifying human beings also as animals? So I raised this first question. Then I said, what about non-vegetarianism? Isn't that not cruelty? So court said that is essential for survival. So therefore we will permit that. I said, all right, you just want to permit the killing of animals for the purpose of survival, that meat should become available. Is that the argument? The court said, yes, that's our argument. I said, then why not ban halal meat, which is unnecessary cruelty for animals? You can still get by jhatka the meat. Why should you allow halal? The court adjourned on that matter, and after that I won the case on Jallikattu. It's true, halal is a cruel thing. It is completely out of date. And it is under Article 25 subject to reasonable restrictions. Those who say freedom of expression also subject under section Article 19 bracket 2 for reasonable restrictions. You can't say Azadi do Kashmir ko. You cannot say, because there is national integrity is a part of the reasonable restrictions laid down in the Constitution. So it's don't blame the courts. You must find out what was the argument made. If the argument is correct, there are times, of course, the court has its own strong feelings, but the fact of the matter is, if you are very vehement, I have lost hardly any case Only one I lost was on defamation. That's because our government was dead against my winning the case. And so the court felt that I will anyway come back some other way later on. So they dismissed it. But generally speaking, I have got relief from the courts because I placed the entire case before them with all the reasons why they should give the judgment in my favor.
So, what's your view on the collegium system and any opinion on the tug of war between the executive and judiciary which keeps happening now and then?
I was a law minister when the system was that the law minister appoints the judges. The judges only give concurrence. They have objections. I can overrule those objections, and I've seen situations. Of course, I didn't have this problem, partly because I was not part of the bar. The bar, see, if a law minister is a former lawyer, then it's the worst thing that can happen because he has all these likes and dislikes, and many people get hurt. In my case, I didn't know one lawyer from another, so I looked at the qualifications and did it. I never had a dispute. But my successor appointed even chaprasis as judges. So that was the power we had as law. And that is the time, through a public interest litigation, the court said, no, government cannot decide this, we'll have a collegium, we'll recommend it. If government has any objections, they can send it to us, we'll consider it. But once we have again rejected that objection, then that's final. So that's the collegium system. Now, our government, borrowing on the Congress government, decided to bring in another system where the government will be the deciding factor. The courts will have a place. I have suggested a compromise which will work. Have this collegium system with 2 other entries, 3 judges and 1 prime minister and 1 leader of the opposition. These 5 together should decide. I think that will work, but at the moment neither side is willing to yield. But it requires persuasion. I believe that judges are personally very reasonable people, and they work very, very hard, because I've seen most often them coming prepared, having read the brief, and they are not small briefs. I'm saying 200 cases per day. So therefore, we are hypercritical about everybody. All politicians are crooks, all doctors are chores, all lawyers are thieves. There's a general cynicism about everybody. And this is the past colonial mentality that has been bred into us. We should be constructive, we should go. I am not in support of the government, I made it very clear. When Mr. Jaitley said in Parliament that this is tyranny of the unelected, I said that is better than the tyranny of the unelectables. There are some people like that too.
So, question 1, which is sort of, there is some concern about the time it takes in our judicial system. Yeah. There are concerns about apathy. There are also questions on should there be a fast track only for politicians. Your views on some of these matters.
I filed the 2G spectrum case in 2010, and it was decided in 2012, 2 years. Right. National Herald I filed in 2013, and I got the summons issued 2014. And now, because of this documents jhagda, and I am also trying to time it nearer the election. So, therefore, some delays there. It depends on the lawyer. If the lawyer is determined that this should be heard fast, it can be done. But generally, there's a cartel between lawyer on one side and the other side. They help each other on adjournments. I'm not saying that is bad, because after all, so they have also a load, they have also so many schedules, they have to travel to courts elsewhere. But we need much more judges. I think they should create a separate city. Say Supreme Court should be moved to the suburbs of. Ideally, I would like Supreme Court to be moved to Nagpur. Not because RSS is there, but that's the center of India. In fact, the capital should be there, you see. And this Hastinapur mitti is not good for the country. there will always be fewer to conspiracy and so on. But Delhi is one corner, it is closer to Pakistan. We should have selected Nagpur from the very beginning. But anyway, these are ways we can improve it. But ultimately, I think we should do now one more thing. All retired Chief Justices should be formed into an advisory council. So when some petty thing comes like a Diwali firecracker, it should go to that council. They should, no Chief Justice of the Supreme Court should be allowed to retire. What is the meaning? They are retiring at 65. What is 65 today? It is nothing, you see. Bhishmacharya fought the Mahabharat war at the age of 118. You see, Krishna Bhagavan was 125. Those were days when people lived that long, and certainly I think 65 is too young. And if you can't make them permanently judges, you can have rotating Chief Justices if you want, or you should have an advisory council which should be entitled to receive and pass judgments on simple issues which should not waste the time of the court.
So, I know you mentioned about the Ram Janmabhoomi, but is there something more that you could share with this audience and on that case and what we should all be looking forward to?
See, the core is this: our right to worship is a fundamental right. The Shia and the Sunni Waqf board, Shia has just come in just now. The Sunni Waqf board had usurped that. It's not a Shia, it's a Shia masjid. If the Shia masjids are only asking for property rights, so therefore my fundamental right of the Hindu is superior to the ordinary right of the Muslim. So we will win on that case. Second, Narasimha Rao government gave an affidavit. Narasimha Rao was a very mischievous man, I must tell you. At heart he was a Pakka Hindu. I asked him, why don't you fire on the sadhus when the Babri Masjid was being... He said, you think I'm mad? Firing on sadhus, and I've called myself a Hindu? I'll never do it. Let it be demolished. So he had put an affidavit. The court asked the government, what is your stand on this? What's the solution? So he put out an affidavit, which is the ultimate, which is going to damage the Muslim cause if there's any. There was never any cause, but if there is any. He said that if it is ever established that there was a pre-existing temple, then the government will hand over this land to the Hindus to build a temple. All right. So the Allahabad High Court was asked to find out. Allahabad High Court asked two were the most prominent archaeologists, one B.B. Lal and the other was K.K. Muhammad of Kerala, and asked them, and they gave a unanimous report that below where the Babri Masjid stood, there is still the remains of a huge Vaishnava temple, of which Ram temple was the central. And so, if Narendra Modi wants to try and wants to do it, he can just issue a ordinance to say, in view of the fact that we have now found that there was a pre-existing temple, and in view of the assurance the government of Congress had given this assurance, therefore we are declaring this land to belong to the Hindus for the purpose of building temple. Instead of parties building it, the government itself will build it. That he can do easily without difficulty. Second is, the judgment goes against us, then what happens? Most people are always worrying about that. If the child is born and if his nose is twisted, who will marry her? This Indians are all the time worrying about these possibilities. So if it goes wrong, what happened? Well, you know what happened in the Shabanu case. The court judgment went against the Muslims, and then the government passed the law and changed the law. So there's no way to escape Ram temple being built in Ram Janmabhoomi, I can tell you that.
So one last question which we always ask our guests, as an audience, it's very nice when we hear from people as learned as you, as erudite as you. But what would be that one message which you would leave this audience with? As ordinary citizens, what should they be doing, especially in your view, when it comes to the law, when it comes to whatever they think about justice?
Well, educate your children to, number one, take risk. Indians are the most risk-averting, risk-avoiding, risk-shy people. At Harvard, I used to ask a question of my students who came from many countries. Now that you are graduated, what kind of a job will you take? One possibility is it's like go and take a big risk, and like Bill Gates or that Apple's owner, Steve Jobs, etc., you can become billionaire. Of course, you could fall on flat on the ground also. That's also a possibility. That's a risk. Or you can get a job. Every year your salary increases 5%. Provident fund also being deposited, gratuity. And at the age of 65, you retire, you get your gratuity, you get your provident fund, you buy a house and buy a television and watch it for the rest of your life. Do you like this life or that life? This is highly secure. And that one is risky. The American students invariably ask me, what is the probability I'll fall flat on my face? Then I will give you the answer. That is the correct answer. If it's a probability which is digestible for you. Indian students 100% used to tell me, we prefer second job. When I tell them, why second job? It's a guaranteed poverty. So the answer came, it is guaranteed. That's the important part. That's the psychology, please remove. Tell your children, do what you think is right after talking to all of us. And encourage them. And they will do very well. I had 2 daughters, I told them, do what you like. And after 21, you don't even have to listen to me. And they have done extremely well. One has become an editor of a newspaper, the other has become a financial expert after getting degrees from Berkeley and Harvard. So, therefore, I think the children should be encouraged to think for themselves. If you go to America, you'll see children asking their parents, why this, why that, and so on. In India, if you ask more than 2 questions, say, chup raho, ya thapad de dungi. See, therefore, you encourage your children to ask questions and argue with them and prepare them. Tell them that failure is an essential part of progress. Failure is a great educator. Success is not an educator, but failure is an educator. It may lead you, failing on one thing, you get an opportunity to do something much bigger, which if you had gone after that success, you would have been in a very routine life. So that adventure of life that you must inculcate to your children.
Thank you. Thanks, Dr. Swamy. I think most of us grew up hearing that one line from Amitabh Bachchan which said, line wahin se shuru hoti hai, jahan hum khade hote hain. But for today, we will all go back with one more line saying, aur कानून वहीं से शुरू होता है, जहाँ Dr. Swamy कहते हैं. Thank you, sir. Thank you for enlightening us. I would now like to propose a word of thanks. Thanks to BMC for making available this hall and its excellent audio and video facilities. Shri Tendulkar and Sairaj Publicity for the banners and backdrops, and Virag Vision for the videography. A very special thank you to Suhas Bahulkar ji, he's in the audience, for those lovely portraits that you see. They've been autographed by him. The one that is there of Lokmanya Tilak is also the replica of what is in the parliament today. Jagdish Shetty ji, a big thank you to you for making this program possible, sir, for taking my calls maybe in the middle of the night when he was in the US, because I used to ask him, when is doctor coming here, what should we do, etc. For our elected representatives, Parag Aravani ji, Abhijit Samant ji, for gracing this occasion. And most importantly, sir, for really taking this time and for all your energy and for really educating us today, sir. Thank you. Subsequent to the formation of our AOP and the opening of our bank account, we've been overwhelmed with the generosity of most of you. You have continued to contribute, and please do that. The last but big thank you is to all of you for being here on a Sunday. Please update your SMS addresses, your email addresses, so that the next messages reach you on time. But one announcement, and please take your seat for a minute, sirs and ladies. Due to security reasons and because Dr. Swamy needs to make it on time to his next venue, may I please request all of you for 2 things. One, please, for those of you who are very keen to meet him, don't rush onto the stage. He really has to go to the next program. And B, give him a moment after we close so that he can leave for the next program. We will close the program with a rendition of Vande Mataram by Sadhana Kakatkar.
वन्दे मातरं वन्दे मातरं सुजलां सुफलां मलयज शीतलां सस्यश्यामलां मातरं वन्दे मातरम् शुभ्रज्योत्स्नां पुलकितयामिनीं पुल्लकुसुमितद्रुमदलशोभिनीं सुहासिनीं सुमधुरभाषिणीं सुखदां वरदां मातरं वन्दे मातरम् वन्दे मातरं वन्दे